how is artificial intelligence reshaping our understanding of education? Can AI enhance human cognition without fostering dependency? In this keynote speech, Professor Mutlu Cukurova from University College London will explore these questions by examining the dynamic interplay between humans and AI. He will highlight the importance of balancing technological advancement with the irreplaceable value of the human learning experience.
This conference on the open and innovative education is a genuinely interesting conference, in particular context of bringing in international interdisciplinary collaborations together. So I hope that my talk, which aims not to get into the specific details of each one of the papers, but aims to give a broad introduction, will be relevant to all of our colleagues here. I would like to start by giving a quick introduction with a short video for those who have not already seen it with regards to the state of the art in AI.
Can you first identify which sides of the triangle are the opposite, adjacent, and hypotenuse relative to angle alpha?
All right, so I'm pretty sure this is the angle alpha right here, right?
Perfect. That's correct. Now, looking at the triangle, which side do you think is the hypotenuse?
Really,
Remember the hypotenuse?
I'm not totally sure. I think it might be this one, but I really am not sure. This side AC.
You're close. Actually, side AC is called the adjacent side to the angle alpha. The hypotenuse is the longest side of a right triangle and is directly opposite the right angle. Can you find which one is the hypotenuse?
Oh, okay, I see. So I think the hypotenuse is this really long side from A to B. Would that be correct?
Exactly.
I think you got the point. This is quite impressive. This is real-time, very limited latency, multimodal interaction, with almost no prompt engineering apart from the initial statement provided to the AI. We are all living at a rapid time of technological investments. These kind of advancements in AI provide significant opportunities as strategic investments to student learning and teaching practices. But at the same time, the same technologies threatens human agency, risks the privacy of our teachers' and students' data, and it has already been deepening some of the long-standing inequalities that persist in our education systems across the globe. So this appears to be a pivotal moment for all of us as scientists, social scientists, practitioners, and policymakers to get together and think about future of education that is aligned with our own values and find ways of using these technologies in a responsible manner that would deliver this particular vision. So what do we call AI these days anyway? Significant amount of excitement in the field comes from the recent advancements that relates to the pre-trained transformers, GPTs. These are models that are pre-trained on a very large-scale web crawl data. This data is used as input tokens, as an input to the transformer architecture, and then these inputs are processed either as masked out words or paired sentences in order to be able to reconstruct the original text through iterative cycles, or what we are calling as epochs, of forward-passing, loss function calculation, backpropagation, and weight updates of the model in order to be able to predict the most likely next word or token. In essence, GPTs have 4 components. These are text embeddings representing input in multidimensional vector space, attention mechanisms to calculate the relationship of the input tokens, multilayer perceptron models with billions of parameters, and embeddings of the tokens that are initially predicted from the matrix values. Then, these pre-trained models are further fine-tuned with approaches like reinforcement learning with human feedback in order to be able to use them in particular tasks. Now, many people in the audience might be thinking that, well, I'm an educational practitioner, educational researcher. I'm not an AI researcher. I'm not a technical person per se. Why is he telling us this? Why do we even need to know in detail how these models actually work? But it matters, and it matters hugely. Because when we think about AI in these terms of looking at it as an information processing models, then they tend to be appearing as very different than the terms that we would use if we were talking about human intelligence. Human intelligence is a complex and multifaceted construct. It expands beyond the considered cognitive capabilities to involve social and emotional aspects. It goes beyond one's ability to reason well, but its ability to be able to interact with the real world. When we think about human intelligence, we need to think about biological intelligence that is represented in our immunity systems on which we have no control whatsoever. We need to think about our reflexive intelligence that comes through our neural structure, which has limited control over. We also need to think about our reflective intelligence, which requires language as a tool to be shaped. So artificial information processing is only about what is certain, decontextualized, disembodied, and reduced to its parts as token, so that it's predictable and controlled. But human intelligence is about things that are fluid. It's about the ability to live and survive despite uncertainty. Lack of these considerations is one of the reasons large language models are sometimes called stochastic parrots. Stochastic in that they generate content based on a probability analysis, and parrots because they appear to have no or very limited any understanding of what they are generating. Humans have an evolved emergent intelligence that is the product of the millions of years of pruning of our actions through evolution. Computers and AI have a designed intelligence that is very good, particularly for a specific goal or a specific set of goals. For instance, large language models are great language models, but they are not the models of the real world in which the meaning is generated. But this is not to say that this is a competition. Humans are very good at many things that today's AI is still very poor at, and AI is good at some others. This is not to say that humans are more intelligent than machines either. We have different types of intelligences. We are just differently abled. When we start thinking about intelligence in these broad terms, recognizing the differences between human intelligence and artificial information processing, it becomes clear that considering AI just as an applied tool is only part of a much bigger picture. AI can be conceptualized to externalize, be internalized, or extend human cognition. As the first conceptualization goes, certain human tasks can be clearly defined and modeled with the help of data. These are tasks that can potentially be replaced with the help of AI. In the second conceptualization, AI models can be used for humans to internalize and to change their own representation of thought. At last, AI models can also be used to extend human cognition as part of a tightly coupled human-AI synergistic hybrid intelligence systems, in which the emergent intelligence is expected to be bigger than the sum of each agent's intelligences. So it has to be synergistic. If we try to map these conceptualizations on the coordinates of Schneiderman's human control and agency versus automation through AI, perhaps most traditional educational technology could be considered as low allowance for human agency and low automation tools. With the initial proliferation of AI in education, many researchers had these very ambitious goals of creating intelligent tutors that are as perceptive as humans, which led to significant development on intelligent tutoring systems, and I can see similar hypes surrounding our foundational models. For instance, in teacher-facing interfaces, these models are considered as better search engines for information retrieval. So for teachers, an opportunity to be able to ask their questions directly to the model rather than searching for information through the web. These tools also provide significant advancements on the existing NLP capabilities of our models. which means that a lot of these tools by teachers can be used for tasks like lesson planning, creating questions to encourage classroom discussions, making lessons more contextual, maybe some assessment items, or generating certain learning objectives for a particular classroom. These are potentially useful tools for teachers' productivity gains, by which what I mean is that they can help teachers save some time. But learning is different. Learning is different than the productivity gains of a teacher. Learning is different in the sense that oftentimes productivity gains in what people can do is not necessarily the only goal or the primary goal of engaging in an activity. When students are engaged in a task, learning from the experience of the task is often the main goal rather than the completion of the task per se. Therefore, productivity gains matter less. For this, we need different types of models that can behave in a way that is different than current off-the-shelf models that are by default designed as a question-answer query models. Currently, there is significant interest and ambition from a lot of the world's leading technology companies aiming to create similar models. Google's LearnLM tutor is one of these examples. And let's hear the vision of OpenAI's Sam Altman on this particular topic, for instance.
I met with a new company this morning, or barely even a company. It's like two people that are going to work on a summer project, trying to actually finally make the AI tutor. And I've always been interested in this space. A lot of people have done great stuff on our platform, but if someone can deliver like the way that you actually like, they used a phrase I love, which is this is going to be like a Montessori level reinvention for how people learn things.
Yeah.
But if you can like find this new way to like let people explore and learn in new ways on their own, I'm personally super excited about that.
How many people here think that two people working on a summer project finally will achieve an AI tutor that will make Montessori level reinvention for how people learn? None. Isn't this fascinating that the world-leading AI CEO is actually assuming or working towards this direction? To me, I do very much appreciate the ambition, but two people working on a summer project to make an AI tutor for Montessori level reinvention for how people learn is naive at best and dangerous for our education systems at worst. We already have many examples from decades of research in AI in education with regards to student-facing AI tools that adapts to the individual levels of mastery and needs of each student, tailoring the content, pacing, and feedback accordingly. Here you can see a couple of early examples from the community, including Carnegie Learning or Duolingo, and more recently, Kamigo. Even though these tools have been traditionally focusing on pedagogical task automation in digital learning environments, they can also work with data from physical learning environments to be able to also focus affective, metacognitive, and engagement tasks. Here is an example of a system that we built using multimodal data in order to be able to detect students' engagement with an intelligent tutoring system. The system uses seat pressure data to be able to judge body movements, facial recognition to model students' level of awakeness, and aims to provide suggestions with regards to the difficulty of the tasks or when should be the time for taking a break. These systems are also not limited to traditional human-generated educational content, but can be delivered with AI-generated synthetic media. Here you can see an entirely AI-generated AI tutor delivering the same content with regards to the physics in this particular case. In our research, while we were comparing to learning gains and the learning experiences of students, we found no statistically significant difference when the type of pedagogy is direct instruction and the content delivered is exactly the same. Human tutors deliver the same amount of learning gains in this exploratory research to the AI-generated synthetic media. But these AI-generated synthetic media are 10 times cheaper than human time to be able to record these videos. So they might have some potential here. With regards to the evidence of the impact of such intelligent tutoring systems, the evidence is quite clear. both at the individual studies levels, but also at the meta-reviews levels, that these systems can achieve good results if implemented appropriately, particularly with regards to knowledge acquisition in the subjects of math, algebra, or learning languages. Now, a core question to ponder upon for all of us who have been working in this area for long decades. Considering these systems are not necessarily new with regards to what kind of pedagogical advancements they are providing, the evidence about their effectiveness is not necessarily new. Why we have not been seeing these tools prevalently in our education systems? Well, there are numerous reasons influencing the adoption of AI in education that are much broader than the effectiveness of these technologies. These include, but are not limited to, policy landscape, institutional governance, pedagogical culture, technological infrastructure, and the social support mechanisms that are provided to teachers as part of their practice. In our recent work, for instance, looking at the factors influencing the real-world adoption of AI technologies in schools, working with over 800 teachers, we have identified that although those factors that were related to the AI technology were indeed important, many other factors were actually more significant predictors of the extent to which a teacher will be adopting these technologies in their practice. How much this additional technology will add to the workload of a teacher? To what extent the teacher gains an ownership to the success and failures of the tool, generating support mechanisms and ensuring that ethical issues are minimized were all very significant predictors to the extent to which these technologies will be adopted in real-world practices. So when we hear from a technology developer, from a computer scientist perspective, that these systems, if they are working very well, they will revolutionize education, should be approached by caution. Because we should never forget that the tools that we are working on are not closed engineering systems, but they are part of a large ecosystem of socio-technical issues. Second, the evidence of impact that I have just presented, both at the individual levels but also at the meta-reviews level, tend to disappear once we leave the technologies at the hands of a teacher, rather than we as researchers going into schools and implementing these technologies in the way that we think it should be implemented. That requires and highlights the importance of improving teachers' competencies and confidence in using AI. Key distinctions between AI and traditional ICT tools necessitate the definition of a specific set of new competencies for teachers. This demands a stronger emphasis on the human agency, issues that are associated with ethical considerations, critical thinking, and human-centered mindset. Here, you can see the example of UNESCO AI Competency Framework for Teachers that we have been working on. This is due to be launched in September in UNESCO headquarters in Paris. To me, if we don't take the related initiatives with regards to teacher training, to expect an innovation that would come through the technology itself is not realistic. Third, education with AI in a pedagogy for one approach is sometimes argued to potentially dehumanize learning and dehumanize education. When AI in education is considered in this very narrow sense, lonely individuals working in front of a screen on their own, this can indeed lead learners to prioritize information gathering and requiring an acquisition of a declarative knowledge. This can oversee the importance of the tacit knowledge and wisdom that comes through embodied interaction in the real world. Learning is not only about absorbing information or acquiring declarative information. Learning is not about only acquiring declarative facts, but it is also about acquiring important embodied skills that can only come through rich experiences in the real world. Education is also not only about learning. We should not forget that the social implications and the role of an education system that goes well beyond our learning outcomes. On the other hand, the same technologies can also be used as opportunities for increasing students' interactions with others, with other peers and other adults. Here, Let's see a short example from a private school from the United States.
What we do have is a lot of adults who are in the room engaging with these kids, working as coaches. So they're helping the kids get clear on like what are some goals that they're working on, what are they doing academically.
So how do they learn? The students work one-on-one with artificial intelligence for 2 hours at the start of the day.
So it's the educational information that regular schools are also teaching with, but AI apps are feeding them to students at the appropriate level and pace that they need.
So you got the point. Instead of an 8 hours classroom time, these students are spending 2 hours of their classroom time with an intelligent tutoring system to be able to acquire this declarative knowledge, and then spend the rest of their classroom time, 6 hours of their time, doing lifelong learning, competency development, working with more abled peers or adults. This is a completely different vision of the future than an individual student working on their own. But it's important to highlight the fact that these kind of learning design and instructional design would come at a particular cost. And the core question to ponder upon is how ready we are to be able to achieve this kind of innovation in our school systems. Such an approach would also require significant innovation in our education systems with regards to assessment structures. As in the case we watched, if the students spend 6 hours of their time developing lifelong competencies, then we need to find ways of assessing these lifelong competencies rather than looking at our traditional assessment structures. AI applications can indeed be detrimental if they are used to automate existing bad practices of our education systems. When we speak with students and teachers in the UK, it is so interesting to observe that a lot of them are requiring AI to automate their existing teaching and assessment practices. So in a dystopian future, we might end up in a situation where the students are using AI to generate their assignments, teachers are using AI to assess these assignments, and although school systems are heavily using AI with regards to technology use, nobody actually learns and nobody actually gains the satisfaction of flourishing an individual student and see the change of your students. I find it fascinating that although most skills and competencies that we are interested in and expect people to develop in our education systems are process-driven, oftentimes these are only assessed based on the outcomes of these skills rather than looking at the entire process. We need to move towards innovations in our assessment structures that encourage process evaluations rather than outcome evaluations only. Essay writing is a fantastic example for this. When we give essay writing as an assignment to our students, most often this is not because the final essay has so much value to us. We do this as educators because we think that through the process of engaging with writing an essay, students will develop core competencies. They should be working on a topic that is assigned to them so that they have to regulate their own thinking. They have to research a topic. They have to judge claims accuracy. They should be able to synthesize information together. They should be able to set goals and monitor to what extent they are making progress towards these goals. We are interested in those competencies. Therefore, the assessment of essays should be looking at these competencies, not only the final outcome of what is produced. In my own teaching, I have essay submission as assignments at UCL too. But for the last few years, in addition to traditional content feedback on students' writings, we have been also developing various analytics feedback with regards to formative assessment of students. We have been looking at their interactions while they are writing their essays on their online word processing platforms, such as Word or Google. When students are engaged with the platform, we are collecting data on their time, their content edits, their goals during this particular essay writing task. To what extent, for instance, the diversity of the words that they are using are changing from the moment they start writing the essay until the moment they submit. To me, these kind of analytics have significant value because these are the particular skills that I'm interested in my students to develop, not only what they submit at the end. And it's fascinating when we look at the impact of these interventions. These kind of analytics interventions that at least we have been implementing at UCL do not appear to be valuable for those students who are already doing very well or achieved or predicted to achieve highest grades. But they tend to work very well for those students who were initially predicted to fail, because they are the ones who actually need the most amount of support with regards to regulation of their learning, and analytics, process analytics particularly, can help us provide support on these. At last, a significant amount of work is still needed to address social-psychological barriers to the use of AI in education. Students need to be motivated enough to engage with an AI tools in the first place, yet only about 5% of them manage to engage with an educational tool that encourages them to reflect upon the inputs that they are providing rather than only giving answers, which is long enough to get statistically significant benefits, only 5%. In addition, teachers tend to have confirmation biases and unrealistic expectations from AI in education. A few years ago, for instance, in our own research, we showed that when people are presented with the same content framed as coming from AI, they were judging the credibility and trustworthiness of the content less compared to the same content presented to them framed as coming from educational neuroscience or educational psychology. Now, similar results are emerging when AI-generated content or feedback is presented to students. They tend to judge its credibility and trustworthiness low. So there is emerging work focusing on how do we actually motivate our students to engage with these technologies in the first place, and how do we gain the trust of teachers in AI in education recommendations, but considerably more research is needed in this space to optimize the trust of our end users. Therefore, based on the lessons learned from decades-long research in AI in education, both from my own team, from my own lab, but also from the community of International Conference of AI in Education, I assert that AI tools alone, and I would like to highlight the alone part, are very unlikely to democratize or revolutionize education. I say very unlikely, putting my doubtful researcher academic hat on. But I can be more confident when I say that despite people like some Altman's expectations, it's not going to happen as a result of two people working on a summer project. The change in education systems is likely to happen gradually as we, key stakeholders of education, perhaps working together as part of these conferences to move and steer the direction towards a direction that is intentional, evidence-informed with existing research, and human-centered. So far, I have been talking about this conceptualization of AI as a tool, those systems where certain tasks are fully automated to be replaced. However, AI in education can also be conceptualized as computational models of complex learning phenomena for humans to internalize as part of their interaction and change their own representation of thought. These lead to relatively low automation systems and high human agency and control. So although everyone comes to a learning situation with a clear mental model, either implicitly or explicitly, about what good looks like, as well as a model that the learners and teachers hold about themselves about this particular context, we can use computational techniques and data to model what success looks like in an AI technique and present these back to the learners and teachers for them to internalize the model of computers to be able to change or revise their existing representation of thought. With my team for the last decade, since 2014, starting from a large-scale project, we have been looking at these open-ended learning environments and trying to design analytics and AI solutions to support students' collaborative learning in these kind of open-ended design tasks contexts. We were investigating students who were engaged in these activities, collecting data from 2D and 3D video to be able to do face and gesture analysis. We were tracking the speed of their hands, the distance between their bodies, their gestures, logging their physical inputs as part of these Arduino kits that they were using, looking at their mobile tool reflections while they were using their mobile tools, as well as using facial emotion recognition to be able to judge their emotional states with a computational technique. Now, if we take the first conceptualization of AI, as an externalizing these tasks to be able to potentially fully automate, we can use this kind of multimodal data and try to build machine learning classifications or regression activities with the models in order to be able to provide an automated classification of their competence. You can use these multiple modalities as input to be able to calculate various levels of independent measures. You can ask expert teachers or learning sciences researchers or educational researchers to watch these videos, use existing assessment metrics or evaluation tools or theoretical frameworks to do the labeling work that would give you a ground truth about what competence looks like to us now. And then it becomes a machine learning problem. You have all of this input data, you have all of these output measures that come from experts as ground truth. You are trying to build a reliable machine learning model that would either classify students into high competence, medium competence, or low competence, or you can try to build a regression model that would give you a specific score of their competence. And oftentimes, the ultimate goal of such prediction models is to be able to create some kind of a dashboard that would help teachers or students to be able to directly intervene in the practice of teaching based on these predictions. Here you can see an example of an MMLA system that indicates whenever the particular students are disengaged or whenever particular students are well engaged and whenever the system cannot really make a decision, which is circled by yellow. These are very common types of dashboards. And the results of their real-world implementations indicate that these might be useful for changing certain teacher practices. In this particular example, for instance, when the dashboard was used, the teachers spent statistically significantly more amount of time on their scaffolding activities to the students and spent statistically significantly less amount of time in close monitoring, so going next to a group trying to understand what they're actually doing. They skip this moment to be able to move on to the scaffolding of the activities. Students also appear to spend less time in the board-detected engagement course. To me, these are valuable initiatives, particularly from the research point of view, because being able to build a reliable machine learning model from such complex activities is a fascinating research stream. But the use of AI that directly intervenes in the practice of teaching and learning in such constructivist learning environments like the one that I have just shown, I think provides significant challenges to our education system and our education practice. These issues, to me, broadly relate to threatened human agency of the educators, accuracies of the predictions in such complex social contexts, and the normativity issue of not being able to tell exactly what is good now and what is eventually good of an intervention. To me, these kind of complex prediction activities also put well-documented significant challenges on the issues like algorithmic bias, transparency, and accountability of AI. But I am not even talking about these yet, because to me, the issue is at a much higher level. The issue is that I am not convinced if it is always possible to make a mathematical narrative to be able to model or predict all aspects of human learning and human competence development. Is it always possible to explain or predict all aspects of human learning and human competence development? AI was coined as a term in the Dartmouth College Summer School proposal in 1956, based on the conjecture that every aspect of learning and any other feature of intelligence can in principle be so precisely described that a machine can be made to simulate it. Since then, we somehow live under the impression that if only we could find them, then there would be formulas and there would be models that would help us explain all aspects of human learning. But maybe some aspects of learning just come through the slow experience of living those learning moments. This itself makes the time spent on these learning activities more meaningful in the sense that you cannot build a prediction model that would tell you exactly what you should be doing next to skip ahead of time and develop a particular competence. I'm not convinced if this is the case. On the other hand, if we take the second conceptualization of AI as computational models for humans to internalize, they can be considered as opportunities to describe the learning processes. these do not aim for the potentially impossible task of prescribing acts based on the future predictions. As Seymour Papert famously noted, you can't think about thinking without thinking about something. In this sense, AI models can be objects to think about human learning. Here, you can see an example from our own work for the concept of collaboration, moving from the digital traces of audio data and video data processed with computer vision and natural language processing in order to be able to model certain aspects of human collaboration. Sometimes, when I present these kind of models and when we publish our results, our colleagues get the impression that these models are only for future predictions. If such an impression is taken forward, then particular measures that relate to these subcomponents of collaboration, which regards to how much, how often, or how fast a particular component is completed, might be prioritized over the actual lived experience of going through these collaborative learning activities. Here, as if one keeps the eye contact for 1 more second, clicks the button 1 second faster, replies to a peer 1 second faster, or attempts a question 1 more time, as if they would develop this core competence of collaboration. For certain learning experiences, more and faster completion of a component of a model, or even more precise, yet not flexible completion of a task, does not always lead to an increased quality of the learning process itself. To me, these are fantastic measures for how good machines are, but they are not great measures for quality of human learning. In our work, we tend to take a much modest goal of using these models for describing some of these behaviors in more precision and mathematical terms on the lived experiences in order to be able to generate visualizations for students and teachers. For end users, the models provide specific feedback opportunities. Here, you can see, for instance, the amount of speech time each individual student spent on their group activity and the type of interaction they spent their time on. These are the visualizations that we are providing at the moment in my teaching at UCI to the group work. For instance, you can see here the different types of group interactions students engage within the timeline of the activity, and we generate relevant feedback based on these interactions in order to be able to improve the self-awareness and reflection opportunities. In my view, these models are tools for making sense of the collaborative learning process, but not necessarily the mirrors of the reality representing the collaboration itself. Of course, such models are also not limited to nonverbal interactions, and we have been working on models that detect speech in groups, transcribe it from speech to text, and label text with the group's challenge moments in their collaborative discourse. Then these detected challenge moments are also sent as feedback to the students after their group work is completed. When we evaluate the value of such feedback to the teachers and learners, they tend to find them very valuable, particularly with regards to increasing their own awareness, but also increasing the awareness of the other peers in the learning activity. The accountability that comes through this awareness of what has just happened tends to influence both their engagement with the learning experience and their regulation of behaviors. To me, this accountability-driven awareness and increased regulation are the real values and goals of these models, not necessarily future predictions based on the data input. Now, this leaves us with the last corner of high automation and high human agency, the corner of human cognition being extended as part of tightly coupled human-AI hybrid intelligent systems. I'm at the end of my talk, and I have not really talked about this particular corner. The reason behind this is that we are yet to see substantial work on this particular front, at least in the way that I describe and conceptualize this particular corner. At best, the current complementarity paradigm of human-AI interaction in education is to make a better match between what humans can do with what AI can do, to be able to improve productivity gains at a particular task. More commonly, for any particular task, we tend to give up our agency to AI to complete a task for us, which in turn is expected to improve our performance at this particular task. We must be judicious in the way that we select these tasks and we delegate our agency to AI, because over-reliance and the dependency on AI in the long term could lead to atrophy of key competencies. On the other hand, for AI models that are internalized by humans, the goal of the model would be to fade away in scaffoldings when this human's interaction with the tool increases. And at last, extending human cognition for intelligence augmentation in tightly coupled human-AI hybrid intelligence systems, this would require, as the interaction with the tool increases, human capability at the task also increases. Our interactions with AI systems are influencing us. Our interactions with AI systems are influencing us. And we are currently lacking long-term impact studies of these interactions as a research community. In order to be able to achieve human-AI hybrid systems, we need models that can interact with us at a much more fluid level. In order to be able to move towards this direction, there are significant changes that are needed to be done, both in terms of our human competencies with regards to our interaction with AI, but also AI modeling techniques. For instance, current AI models lack the capabilities of being able to adjust their own model weights based on data that comes through the real-world interaction. People very rarely come to an interaction situation with a specific or fully formed meaning in mind. Current expectation is that we should be able to tell to an AI model exactly what we want it to achieve. This is not genuine interaction that could lead to human interaction. We need these models to be able to shape the meaning together with us as part of a tightly coupled human-AI interaction system. So this is my last slide, and I would like to emphasize on some of the points that I have been trying to make as part of this talk. First, to me, AI as an applied tool may be beneficial. Don't get me wrong if I have appeared a bit pessimistic with regards to the value of AI as an applied tool. There is value, but we should ensure that the use of AI makes people more competent rather than dependent. Or even if the dependency is an option, we should think more carefully if that is indeed an okay competency for us to lead to atrophy. AI solutions are also not only closed engineering systems, but part of a large ecosystem. For us to be able to expect any real-world change with AI would require significant changes in infrastructure, governance, teacher training, and assessment structures. And although the current rhetoric heavily focuses on this dimension, AI in education is not only about building tools. AI can also be used as an object to think about human learning, helping us understand and potentially improve human learning. In these explorations, we might actually come up with a conclusion that certain types of learning should never be intervened with AI, because they only come through the real-world interactions and the lived experiences that should not be predicted and intervened upon. At last, although exciting developments and significant technical achievements are happening, it is unlikely that AI alone will solve any of the fundamental problems that we have in our education systems. Applications of AI in education and the visionary direction in strategic policies must be informed by research evidence and multi-stakeholder dialogue, like in this fantastic conference. I look forward to seeing the emerging research, talking to as many of you as possible, and see to what extent we can shape the direction towards an intentional, evidence-informed, and human-centered manner. Thank you very much for listening to me.